Let me now bring on board the Banking Secretary of India, Mr. Rajiv Thakru on board. Rajiv, good morning. Thank you for joining us. The corporates have vested interest and which is why there is a lot of debate that they should have been barred. What has made Reserve Bank of India change its mind? And do you think enough safeguards are in place to avoid risky lending? That is the key question, isn't it, sir?
It's very difficult for me to answer as to what made RBI change its mind. I'm sure you are aware, and it's in the public domain, that the draft guidelines were put out by the RBI some time back. There was a lot of feedback after that. The Indian Banks Association also gave their comments. We were in a continuous discussion with the RBI. There were all kinds of other stakeholders who were talking to them. And the pros and cons were evaluated over a period of time. There was no hasty decision making. And I think ultimately what has come out is perhaps the fairest configuration which they could have worked out. And regarding safeguards, I think this point has been thrashed out to a large extent, even on your TV channel and on other TV channels. And it's been in the public domain now. It's been under discussion. There is a clause there which says fit and proper. And I personally feel that RBI would be in a position to take a very reasonable view in the matter. And I do not think that there is any danger of any wrong kind of people getting into the banking sector.
Mr. Thakru, some corporates are wary of too much investigative scrutiny as well. Do you think this will dampen participation?
I would like to answer this question from common sense. And I think that's the logic which appeals to most of us. There's an old saying that those of us who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. If you go into the history of banking, and I'm sure the corporates who you are quoting as being wary of these guidelines would do well to look at history. Wherever banking has been confused with risky business transactions, invariably the result has been disaster. And I think we have so many examples in India, starting right from, if my memory does not desert me, I think the first example came in 1829. And then I think there was another very famous case after that, the Sholapur Bank case and so on. So we have examples in history where banking has been completely derailed because of risky business transactions, and I don't think there is any reason for us to think that this RBI decision is wrong.
Right, but Mr. Thakru, will Reserve Bank of India will they be able to weed out ineligible applicants? How will they deal with the eligibility criteria? For example, if there are 10 eligible applicants, what really process do you think they will have to put in play to ensure that the right set of companies, they get the final license?
No, this is again an age-old problem where you have too many applicants and too little places. It applies to all walks of life. When any of us go and apply for anything in a place where the supply is far greater than the demand, you do have a process of weeding out. So like everywhere else in life, we are going to put out, I suppose, a merit list, and the most eligible people will win.
Right, but what if there are more than eligible participants that RBI can accommodate? What happens then?
Well, the guys who are at the tail will obviously stay out.
Right, even though explicitly there is no bar on any industry vertical, the fact that the business model states that promoter or promoter group activities should not be aligned with the banking model, and the group activities should not be speculative in nature or subject to high asset price volatility, indirectly or directly minimizes the chance of real estate or broking activities?
The RBI guidelines are pretty general. All the PSU entities are entitled. I think it is up to the boards of the individual entities to decide whether they fulfill all the criteria or not. It would be very difficult for me to pass a judgment here. In any case, it is for the individual entities who would be doing good corporate governance within themselves to decide whether they want to get into this sector or not.
Right. So, Mr. Takru, I mean, what kind of competition do you envisage in the banking space, and how many more banks does India need? And when do you see new banks in place then?
Let me start with the second part of your question first. I would like to point out that I think it's a World Bank report which said that India falls in the approximately, I think it's between 37 and 40 percentile bracket in the world in terms of availability of banks. And you know what percentile means. That means about 60 odd percent of the countries are above us. Now, I think we had, if I remember correctly, 6.3 banks per 1 lakh population, if the figure is, if I'm not making a mistake on the figure. Now, the question here is, I don't think there's any dispute on the fact that we have large areas which are unbanked and underbanked. So there is a lot of scope here for new people to come in, and banks are vehicles of development. So if we have to develop, we have to introduce banks there. I think I said earlier, a couple of days ago also, that it's difficult at this time to put a number on that. But as you will notice, we have this 25% criteria for banks going into unbanked areas, the new banks going into unbanked areas. And they would have to follow all the guidelines of lending to priority sector and to priority sector lending. So I suspect that there is a lot of scope here for a lot of branches to come in, a lot of banks to come in. And I think at the end of it, we are going to be quite happy.
So that is my follow-up question, sir. Will 1/4 of branches in the rural area be a constraint at all?
No. As a matter of fact, I am an incorrigible optimist. I do not see that as being a constraint at all. As a matter of fact, I think the boot is on the other leg. There is a huge amount of resource available in our unbanked areas, which, following traditional methods, people store their money in pots and they hide it under beds, and I don't know what they do. I'm talking of the agricultural sector, and not the wrong kind of money. Now, I think there is a need not only to bring this resource out into the formal sector through savings, but also to provide banking services to these people. And you only have to step out of the metros, and you only have to step out of the main city areas to see that there is a huge mass of people out there in the country who are waiting eagerly for banking services. I do not think that this 25% of, shall we say within inverted commas, forced movement of these new banks into these unbanked areas is ultimately going to work to their detriment. I have a feeling that they might come back and thank the RBI for pushing them into these areas where perhaps left to themselves, they may not have gone.
Mr. Takru, foreign capital is allowed up to 49% for the first 5 years. Do you think we would see more foreign capital coming in again into the banking system? And are there foreign banks in touch with the government to set operations here?
No, there are a lot of people who are in touch with us. And there are a lot of people who are moving around, as you know, and talking to various people and so on. People do look for investment opportunities. I personally, if you are asking an opinion, I would say that there is a lot of interest out there. And I suspect this, we are not going to be disappointed on this score either. There would be a lot of people waiting in the wings to move in.
Right. So when do you think the listing norms will be relaxed by a year, from 2 years in a draft norms to 3 year in the final norms?
The only difference between the draft and the final guidelines is, I suppose, the consultations which took place between the RBI and the stakeholders and government and the RBI and various people. So that is actually the difference between the draft and the final thing. You do a lot of consultation and then you come out with what you think is the best.
The finance minister, though, has said that India needs 1 to 2 large world-sized banks. Do you think new licenses will pave the way for that to happen?
These norms apply to new banks. Now we'll have to wait and see whether any of these new banks are going to fall into that category. But I can tell you that what the finance minister had said is something which is very actively there on the plate. It's there on the agenda. And it is something which is being looked at. And hopefully, with a bit of luck, I think, and with a bit of push, of course, we probably would end up achieving what the finance minister said.